Mics are hot.
Oh, yeah.
The
zombies are coming.
The zombies are coming.
The zombies. That was good. That was great.
Perfect. We have our intro now.
Yep.
Done and done.
There it is.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, friends and rivals. My name is Jared, and with me is my scavengery survivalist friend, Ian.
That's me.
We will be your hosts for the podcast. We are honored that you've joined us at our table. Here at the Game Table Podcast, we take a look at various board, card, and other tabletop games. We give an overview, provide our somewhat finely crafted thoughts, all in an attempt to give you an idea of how well it would fit for you and your table. Today, we will be looking at Dead of Winter. Designed by Jonathan Gilmour and Isaac Vega. Artwork done by David Richards, Fernando Suarez, and Peter Woken. Might be the first time I got all three names right on the first try. And published by Plaid Hat Games.
Dead of Winter is a 2 to 5 player meta-cooperative psychological survival game.
Wow.
Dodging zombies, trying to stay warm, and gathering resources are just the beginning of this frozen apocalyptic game. Players will work together to complete a grouped objective, but for each player to win, they must also complete their own personal goal. But watch out! There's always a possibility of a traitor amongst the group.
Dun dun dun!
Whose goal is to see the demise of the colony. Players will either last the winter, or they'll be overrun by the zombie hordes. Join us today in this review. That was excellent. Your zombie sounds are on point.
Are they?
On point.
They don't sound like a cat?
No, well, maybe a little bit.
He's like, now that you mention it.
Well, anyway, welcome to this episode. Well, Jared.
Yes, Ian. No, I'm introing this.
Okay.
I want everyone out there to know, I love would you rather questions.
Okay.
They bring me so much joy in life. So, Ian, I ask you, would you rather be stuck in a zombie apocalypse or an eternal winter?
Oh, I don't know. I'm scared of both.
I mean, that is the idea.
Let's think about this.
Oh, boy.
Zombies, you can't trust anyone.
Nope.
And you have to be able to be skilled with at least some weaponry of some kind, I would have to think. It'd be hard to not survive without knowing some type of skill in that. A winter, though, man, that's a long cold.
Eternal, in fact.
Eternal cold. That's like second to hell. And eternal heat is definitely worse, but...
Can you trust anyone in an eternal winter? That is a major question.
I mean,
here.
I don't know if you can. If everybody's just freezing...
if you all bundle up together in the same sleeping bag, you might make it.
I don't know. Well, yeah. Do I get seasons inside the zombie apocalypse?
Sure.
Okay.
I already know what I would pick.
I think I would take the zombie apocalypse based off... I feel pretty good with my weaponry. At least I think I could get there. I could do all right.
Yeah.
And I need some spring or something. I can't do winter for the rest of my life. That sounds terrible. I'd rather just die from a zombie, I think, than die from winter.
Dang.
So, yeah.
When I started thinking about this question for myself, I tried to beat it and was like, well, if this was an eternal winter, I could just build a facility underground and then generate heat and be done with it.
Not how it works.
But then I started thinking about the movie The Thing and immediately changed my mind. And I think that with an eternal winter, there's almost no hope.
There's really not.
The world is dying. You are all alone.
Yep.
Or you're all going mad together in this very small enclosure.
Yeah.
And it's just the end. Whereas with a zombie apocalypse, I mean, you know that the odds of a cure are like 1,000,000 to 1.
Right.
But there's the chance, and you have the opportunity to maybe make a life for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You could survive somehow.
I mean, as with all good would you rathers, both situations suck.
Yeah, they're
but
not
I
great.
would take the zombie apocalypse as well in this case.
I think that's, I don't know. That's just for me. But anyway, speaking of zombies, do you have, so what was your first like zombie experience? Do you have a movie or a show? I mean, The Walking Dead was obviously one of the biggest ones, and came out when this game came out. The Walking Dead was pretty poppin'.
Yeah. So I don't think that I had a lot of zombie exposure as a kid. It just wasn't a big, like, we didn't do a lot of horror in our house. But in high school, for one of my media classes, my teacher showed us 28 Days Later.
Okay.
That movie's phenomenal. And it totally opened me up to how much fun zombie movies can be. So I've got all kinds of zombie movies that I like. Zombieland, Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead. It just, the list goes on.
Zombieland
is so good.
Zombieland is good,
dude.
I also have not really into the zombie world. I watched a little bit of The Walking Dead, but wasn't really into it. And really my first experience though, I was thinking about this randomly. My first experience was as a kid. Well, we didn't do scary movies or anything. Horror, I still don't even really do. I watch a little bit.
Right.
Scooby-Doo.
What?
On Zombie Island. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
That's your exposure.
And that was my exposure as a kid. And it was actually kind of scary. It was kind of scary as a kid. I mean, zombies are a little like Scooby-Doo, obviously dead with monsters and stuff and ghosts. But like, I don't know, is the zombies because they were like actually real in the movie. And it was like, oh, that's not just a mask. Like, anyway, it was pretty funny. That came out in 1998. And funny thing, Mark Hamill is in it. Mark Hamill.
That sounds right.
Yeah, Mark Hamill is Snakebite Scrugg. Is one of the
star of the movie.
The star of the movie is Mark Hamill. Oh, it's so good. But,
that's funny.
But no, Walking Dead, Zombieland is on the list, and then The Last of Us. I love that show. It's not. I mean, it's zombies. It's more of a.
It's in the umbrella.
Yeah,
I feel like
that's my most recent, which I really enjoyed. I'm hoping better things for season 2, but I don't watch a lot of it, but it's definitely something I'll hit up every once in a while.
Sure.
So
absolutely,
yeah.
No, I really like. I mean, I have a few zombie games actually that I really enjoy. So we have Dead of Winter, Zombicide. There's a few others that I'm blanking on at the moment, but I know that we've played them.
There's a good amount of zombie.
I mean, there was
board
a
games.
point at like right around this. Dead of Winter came in the peak of zombie games.
Yes,
everybody and their mother was making zombie games.
Yep.
And I remember when this first came out, I got a little bit of flack for that.
Yep.
But I really feel, and we'll get into this, that Dead of Winter takes the zombie genre and goes a step further.
It kind of does.
Yep.
And this came out in 2014.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Almost 10 years. That's wild. And it's originally done by Plaid Hat.
Yes.
I saw is Fantasy Flight currently. It's on Fantasy Flight's website right now. So I don't know who's still.
So
I don't know if there's a merger or something.
We're kind of doing this out of order a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Let's go ahead and do the publisher.
Okay.
So Plaid Hat Games was an independent company when this game was published.
Yeah.
It was one of the underdogs. I've rooted for Plaid Hat for a long time.
I like
because they make good games. They focus a lot on the story aspect of games.
They do.
And I like the people that work there. They have a real heart for bringing those stories out and for getting to your table. There was a point in time where Plaid Hat was bought by a company called F2Z, who was then bought by Asmodee.
Okay.
So they got under the Asmodee conglomerate.
Like everybody else.
During the time it was cool to get bought by Asmodee.
It's still cool, I guess.
I don't know.
It's not cool, but it still happens.
I don't know that it's that cool. But I was kind of sad. I mean, when you're rooting for this independent,
yeah,
and then they sell out, you're like, well, dang.
Yep.
Anyways, long story short, they have now, the original owner has gotten the company back into an independent state.
Oh,
But my understanding is certain games are able to be sold by both companies,
okay.
and they split somehow.
Okay. Because it's on Fantasy Flight's website, which is owned by Asmodee.
I think that's why.
Okay.
Fantasy Flight never had anything to do with this game.
No, they didn't.
Other than being under the Asmodee umbrella.
Yeah, I just saw that it was on their website, so.
That was a lot of business jargon for people that probably don't care.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that stuff. I was curious. I didn't know all that, so it's nice to know.
Dude, I was in the middle of all that. I talk like I was actually there.
You were there.
I wasn't there.
In 2014.
That was a step too far. But I will say, like, I listened to their podcast every week. Like, I was rooting for this.
Plaid Hat podcast.
They had their own podcast.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. I did listen to some episodes of them. I really enjoyed their episodes. I still,
like, the little jingle still comes to my head every once in a while. And it was a fun show. And they were just really down to earth and real people that talked about wanting to make these games, and it was really cool.
I really liked it.
So
yeah.
Like I said, it was just really disappointing when they sold out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. Like, you're making money.
It's
like
tough,
I can't get upset about that, I guess. But anyways, that's enough about Plaid Hat.
Yeah. So anyway, Dead of Winter. Tell us about Dead of Winter, Jared.
Oh my gosh, you guys buckle up, because this is a book that I've put down here to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
All right, so we're going to talk about how to play. I'm not going to go over every little detail, even though it feels like I will.
Yeah.
But I do want you to have a good understanding of how to play this game. So, Dead of Winter is a semi-cooperative, meta-cooperative, psychological, whatever, but you're kind of sort of working together to survive the zombie apocalypse in the winter time.
You are surviving as a group, and you each have your own motives.
You have all kinds of shenanigans going on. So, there are several boards that represent different locations in this game. You have your main board, which has your colony, which is essentially your base, where everybody's going to start.
Yep.
It also contains various trackers that keep up with things like the remaining amount of rounds in the game, the morale, your main objective, and how close it is to being completed.
Yep.
There's a current crisis every round that it's kept up there.
Always.
The number of food that you have. And of course, the most important thing in a zombie apocalypse.
You cannot.
We must keep track of the accumulated waste.
You cannot waste. There cannot be waste.
We can't have a messy living space.
Don't be wasteful.
Obviously. So, in addition to the main board, there are 6 other locations that can be explored by the characters.
The wilderness.
Well, let's not get crazy.
The town.
The town, if you will. These boards have various item decks. So there's a police station, a school, a grocery store, a library, a hospital, and a gas station.
Yep.
Each one has its own assigned deck with different items that you can find at various locations.
And each deck has different of like, so if you're at the library, there's a lot more like books and maybe some food.
Yeah, and there's not very many guns at the library.
Police
weirdly
station
enough.
has all the guns though.
Yes, it does.
Police station has all the, always go to the police station first.
Or wherever you need food. So you got to go to the grocery store too. That's a problem. Everything's a problem in this game. All right, let's keep going. So we talked about the decks. Cool. So then after you set up these various locations, you're going to give each player a personal objective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. We got to keep these separate. It's not an objective. This is a personal goal that you have. It's a card that has various things that you have to check off that you have. They might be things like you need to have 4 survivors in your following, or it might be that you need 3 fuel in your hand at the end of the game. Things like that. You will also be in control of 2 characters to start the game. You will start with 3 blue action dice, and you'll have a cheat sheet that will keep track of all your possible actions, the sequence of a round, and it will also give you a place to mark where your unused action dice go as well as your used action dice. And to start the game, everyone is in the colony to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go ahead and immediately add some zombies to the board. The number of zombies and where they spawn at the beginning of the game are determined by the selected main objective.
Mm-hmm.
A round starts by revealing the day's crisis, each player rolling their action dice, and then each player taking their turn, starting with the first player and going in clockwise order. Ian, talk to me about crises.
Yeah, so each day there is a crisis for the group and for the colony.
Yep.
This crisis, oh my goodness, they are terrible. They are so bad.
They're never good.
There's not a good one. There's not. And so there's so many different types, but normally, as an example, there's a crisis of food. There's a food shortage. And so people have to gather up food supplies. Or there's a crisis of not enough tools. And so the group as a colony has to muster up enough resources and tools to be able to fix their broken vehicle or whatever that they need to get around.
Yes.
And these are just very generic as far as theme. But when it comes down to it, for the entirety of the round, the players will have to commit resources from their own personal supply.
Their own hand.
In their own hand, and give it up for the crisis to be able to solve this crisis for the colony. The ones that usually pop up most is the food. So you're short on food. And so you have to place food cards that you find through searching and whatever, and we'll get to that. But you will find resources throughout the game as a player individually, and it'll go into your hand. And these are not, they're hidden from the other players. It is your own personal hand because you are playing this game for yourself, but also as a team. And so what you'll do with these resources as you get them, you will submit them or commit them to whatever crisis or personal gain that might happen throughout the game. And so the crisis comes up every round, like I said, and you will have to successfully complete this crisis or solve the crisis each round. Or if you do not, something terrible, terrible, terrible will happen. And so if you complete the crisis, usually something good happens. You gain a morale.
Well, that's if you go above and beyond.
Right. Well, if you could, most of the time, let's say as an example, you need 8 food. So you need 8 food for this crisis. There's a food spoilage. So you need to commit 8 food as a group to this crisis. If you get 8 food, nothing happens. That's it. Nothing happens.
The bad thing doesn't happen.
Nothing happens. If you go above and beyond, maybe you placed 10 food as a group into this, then you may gain a morale. Maybe that's it. Maybe something else will happen, but usually that's it. If you fail the crisis, this is where bad things happen. And usually what ends up happening is a lot of zombies gets placed. You lose a morale. There are so many different things that can happen with this crisis card, but those are some of the things usually resulting in a lot of zombies or a wound for somebody or
sure. And Ian,
anything.
How do you commit your cards to the crisis?
Yeah, so on your turn as a player, and each player will get their turn individually for the round, what you'll have to do is you'll take the cards from your hand and you will place it into the pool of crisis cards or crisis submissions into the solving this crisis.
Great on the terminology.
Yeah, so you'll place a card, but here's the thing, is that card is placed face down into this pool of possible food or whatever else of junk that has been kind of thrown into the pool of resources.
But Ian, how do I know if you're lying or not?
Well, you don't.
Oh, no.
You do not know. And that's the thing. So after the end of the round, after all the players have gone, we will shuffle up those cards and reveal one at a time. What you'll count if you have enough to complete the crisis and if you're successful or if you fail or if you go above and beyond. But if there is any card that is not in that group that you're supposed to have. So it'll say what type of card needs to be submitted into this crisis. And so if you submit a wrong card into that pool, it negates, is that correct? It negates, I think, from...
It doesn't count towards the total.
Yeah, it doesn't count towards the total. So in that case, you're like, oh, there's 8 cards face down here. And there's one that's not a food card that you needed, though.
So we're not good.
So then you're not covered, and boom, there it goes.
Dang.
You lose.
You hate to see it.
You lose that crisis. And it is goes unsolved and it ruins the colony for that round.
If the main objective, your personal objective or goal, I really got to change that.
Yeah.
The crisis, if all of that was not enough, we now get a 4th thing going on in the middle of all this chaos. So when a player's turn begins, it always begins with the player to the left of the active player, because the player to the left draws from a deck of what is called Crossroad cards. On this Crossroad is a little story blurb, but at the very top is an italicized text that has various things that the active player might do on their turn, which could then trigger the card.
Yes.
It might be as simple as the active player has a character at the colony. It might be them moving to a location. It could be a variety of things. But when that happens, the game temporarily stops. The player with the Crossroad card reads the little story blurb, and then there is usually a decision for either the active player or the group as a whole. And there are consequences for both choices almost every time. Once the Crossroad card is completed, or if the card is never triggered, the active player still takes their turn as normal. They can kill zombies, search various locations, move, contribute to either the crisis or the main objective. They can attract zombies to a location, or, most importantly, clean waste.
Yeah.
Again, this is an apocalypse, people. We need a clean working space.
Mm-hmm.
When you are doing these actions are always determined, well, not always. A lot of the time, actions are determined by players' action dice. So, you'll start the game with one more action die, then you do characters. You start the game with 3 actions
because
that you can
characters.
split among the 2 characters.
Yeah.
And the cheat sheet does a good job of telling you what requires a die, what doesn't require a die.
Yep.
And then certain actions will also require a certain number depending on what kind of character you have. All right. Now, there is still more.
Because this is the dead of winter.
In the dead of winter, in a zombie apocalypse, tell me about the red D12 die.
Yeah, so this die, anytime you do something in this game, you want to do something good? No, the game slaps you in the face. You can't do something good. This die, literally like, oh, look, I just killed 4 zombies. Oh, that's good. Good for you. I'm so happy for you. You might die now. Oh, you submitted some food. You walked out into the wilderness to help the clan. Oh, you wanted to go search for stuff? Roll a die. Maybe you'll die. And so with this die, there are 3 symbols and then a blank. Well, 4, I guess.
Yeah, so there are 4 options when you're rolling this die.
Yeah, so there's a blank, which is actually great. A blank is great. You want a blank.
That's true. That is your best case scenario when you're rolling this die.
Then you have a frostbite.
Yep.
A frostbite symbol. And so if you get frostbite, it's kind of like a wound. It is a wound, but then it's frostbite. So your leg slowly falls off more and more. And so therefore, it slowly affects you as the game progresses on. Each turn, you'll take another wound. The other symbol on the die is just a wound, which is honestly better than frostbite. I don't even know how that's even possible. Just getting wounded is better than having frostbite, which makes sense.
I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
I know. The last symbol is by far the worst symbol that you ever want to roll. The blessed tooth. The tooth mark that has been left in your left cheek by the zombie that you did not see. And this symbol will kill you immediately. This character, or outsider, or whatever the terminology is.
It is a character.
Yeah, the character that you have rolled this die on is immediately dead. There is no stopping a bite. You have become a zombie, and that character is lost, and you lose a morale. That is by far the worst thing that you could ever roll. There's only one of those on the die, though. But
no. Let me give this disclosure. If you are playing this game, especially if you're playing this game for the first time,
yes,
without fail, every time I've introduced this to a new player, within their first 2 rounds, they will roll the tooth.
Yes, 100%.
So when that happens, it's okay.
Yes,
just be okay with losing your character.
You're down to 1.
Embrace the failure.
I swear I played this game, a month ago or so with a big group, and oh my gosh, yes, the first player, they lost their guy on like the second roll.
Yep, without fail, the die knows.
It's ridiculous.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah,
we're almost there, folks. Like I said, you have blue action dice to determine what actions you can do. You always have one more action die than you do characters. So if you have opportunities during the game to gain more characters, which means you gain more dice. However, the more characters you have, the more mouths you have to feed.
You have to feed the people because they're hungry.
Enough, we'll get to that in a little bit.
So annoying.
After a player ends their turn, the next player goes, and this will continue until all players have had a turn, and then it's time for the colony phase. This is essentially the pay resources, spawn zombies, and hope you don't die phase.
Yes.
During the colony phase, you start by playing. The players will pay for their food.
Yes.
So you gain food tokens during the round by playing cards, and then you turn in those food tokens to be able to basically pay for those people to eat.
Yeah. You got to feed the people.
We talked about crises a little while ago.
This is different.
And you mentioned that a lot of the crises cards have food on them.
Yes.
This is a separate payment. This is not the crises
Nope.
payment. We're going to get to that in a second.
Does not go to that.
This is all the time you're paying for food every round because people got to eat.
Yep.
Otherwise, you starve and you lose morale, and then people quit and they commit suicide.
There's not enough food to go
bad.
around. There's not enough food to go around.
Yeah. So after you pay food, you check waste. Clean environment, people.
No.
So I know that we've made this joke like 4 times now. To me, it is one of those times where a game mechanic is there for a good game reason, but thematically it's ridiculous in my opinion.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's ridiculous. Anyways, as you're playing these food cards and these tools and all these other things, you're creating waste. And part of this game measures your morality. And if your morality gets down to 0, it's one of the ways that the normal players, lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want that to happen. So you have to be able to start cleaning waste away to keep it all nice and tidy. You want to make sure you never have too much waste or you start losing morale.
Don't be wasteful.
Next, no, just clean up your waste.
Okay.
Yep. Next, you resolve the current round's crisis, which we've already talked about. And then finally, you spawn more zombies. At this point, assuming one of the losing conditions haven't been met yet, you check to see if the main objective has been completed. If it has, the game is now over. If it hasn't, you move the round tracker down 1, pass the first player token, and start a new round.
Mm-hmm.
The game can end in a few ways. The round marker going to 0, the morale marker going to 0, or the main objective being completed. Ian, tell me about morale.
Oh no.
Do you have any of that in this game?
I don't know. Oh. Well, morale is something that you keep track of throughout the game. You start, depending on the scenario, usually you start at a certain round marker in each scenario, and there's like a bunch of them. You start at a certain round marker and a certain morale. Throughout the game, if you lose a character or something like that, a morale goes down. If you don't complete the crisis, you lose a morale. So you'll be losing morale for sure throughout this game. There are ways to get it back, though, and kind of keep it balanced. But in general, there's way more ways to lose morale than gain morale. But if that morale ever hits 0, then you will lose the game for sure. And even with, I think, even some of the players' objectives, that is, you lost most of the time. But with this morale, again, it is triggered in up and down through many different ways. And like I said, losing characters and gaining characters, does that?
No. So some other ways to lose, if you're starving because you don't have enough food, is losing morale. If you have certain crossroad decisions, that can lose morale. Yeah. So there's things like that.
The crossroads is a great way to gain morale back, I think.
Or lose. I mean, it really depends on the scenario.
It does.
What's going on.
There's not, so the only ways to gain morale back are the crisis will allow you to gain a morale if you overcommit a certain amount of resources to it. And then the crossroads are the ways to really gain morale back. I don't think there's another way.
Yeah. It's not very common.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a zombie apocalypse in the wintertime. You're not supposed to be happy about it.
Exactly. And so, so once, again, we look at that food per turn or per round. And if you didn't feed everybody, you'll get is it a starvation token?
That's it.
Yeah.
That compounds on itself.
Yeah. So is that, do you lose a morale that round though? The first time it happens?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And then if you get another, you lose 2 morale.
Right. So for each starvation token that you have, and then you go starving again, you lose that many morale. So it just super compounds upon itself. So the first time you're like, oh, this is fine. We just lost some morale. But then if it happens again or again, you're going to be losing multiple morale on top of gaining more starvation. For every time you go starving, you gain another starvation token. And so you're going to be, it just compounds itself. You don't want this to happen. This is a no-no. This that you cannot win.
Do not starve people.
Yeah, do not starve people. People get hangry and they make poor decisions.
All right. As we mentioned before, when the main objective is completed, the game ends.
Yes.
At this time, everyone reveals their super secret personal goals and shows if they have satisfied their goal requirement in addition to the main objective requirement.
Yeah.
Those who have done that win the game. If the main objective is completed, but Ian has not completed his personal objective, Ian loses.
Yeah.
And his morale goes down to 0.
Yeah, that's right.
Finally, there is one other aspect to this game. Some of the secret personal objectives have big red letters on them that spells out betrayer.
Oh.
If you are dealt this card, you have a set of objectives that will directly sabotage the rest of the group. You want the main objective to fail. You want the game to end horribly. But you will still have your own requirements to meet before you could win. If you suspect that another player is the betrayer, you may attempt to talk the group into exiling this player.
Mm-hmm.
If successful, they are no longer allowed in the colony and are given an exile card, which gives them an entirely new objective altogether.
Yeah.
All right. I know that was a lot.
That is a lot.
Let's talk about our own personal thoughts now.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot to this game. And the one thing about this game that I love,
just one?
it's not just one thing. There's a lot of great things about this game. But the fascinating part of this game is it truly does feel like a zombie apocalypse. It feels like you're in one of these movies or shows and you are surviving. On your turn, you're like, I have my own personal goal, which, an example I think of one in my last game was at the very end of the game, I have to have 10 food in my hand. 10 food? 10 food on top of having to feed the crisis and on top of having to feed the colony. And everybody's like looking at all your cards. You're like, well, why do you have that much food in your hand? And it's challenging in a game to complete your own objective on top of also keeping the colony alive. And so there is a lot to this game. Every turn you're thinking about, okay, where do I go? Where am I help? Like, I got to help the colony, but I also want to kind of like help myself in some ways. And so each turn, you'll be moving your character around, fighting zombies with weapons that you find. Each character is very specific on if they're good at fighting or if they're good at searching. Those are really some of the main things that you can do is you can go to these locations and you can search the different buildings for certain items that you're looking for or just in general. But usually you go to a building to find a specific thing. And when you're searching, zombies might pop out at you, and on that location, there's zombies inside the colony that are attacking you, but also out on these separate locations. And so when you're searching, and this is one of the coolest things, is that each location is different. Each location has their own deck. Each location has more things in it than others. You can also find more survivors that you'll be able to gain in each of these decks. Each of them has the same amount. I think it's like 2 or 3 per deck that you can find more survivors.
Something like that, yeah.
And so you can gain survivors by searching. And that's a kind of a personal thing because you're like, I want more characters because each character that you get gets you another die that you can use on your turn. And so these dice, again, you use these to do actions on your turn and whatnot. But when you're searching, you're looking for, there's some really cool things. There's a lot of, specific weapons or food and fuel to fight, and you can use all these different things. They each have like an ability of their own. So like fuel allows you to move from location to location without rolling that nasty die that could kill you. But there are crises that you need fuel. And so it's like, well, no, I don't want to roll the die this turn, but I need to help the crisis.
And Ian, you're creating waste.
Yes.
By burning that fuel card.
Yeah, exactly. So if you play the card for its ability, it goes to the waste pool. And so you'll have to clean that waste later.
I think for me, one of the things that I really love about this game, and you kind of touched on it, is you can have a game where there is no betrayer at the table. And obviously the other players don't know that.
Right.
But you could be completely suspicious of everybody.
Exactly.
Because there's that give and take of, do I help the main objective? Do I hold on to all of this stuff?
Right.
And it's like, if you're the person that has the objective in front of you that says, by the end of the game, you personally have to have 4 medicine cards in your hand.
That's so hard.
And you're hanging out at the hospital.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, hey, dude, where's the medicine?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know.
It's not here. I have to keep looking.
And you immediately become a suspect of like, oh, dang, we got to get Jared out of here.
Yes.
So there is this weird, overwhelming tension that creates itself by all the bad stuff that's going on in this game. And you will feel behind in this game, no matter whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. I think we'll get up into this later. It feels overwhelming at first because you're like trying to stay hidden as the bad guy, but you have your own set of things going on that you need to make sure you're doing and not getting caught too early.
Yeah.
So there's a really nice tension, and I really love that about this game. I also really love the take that they did where the zombies are prominent and they create a problem, but they're really the backdrop for this game. It's not just a go kill zombies game.
No.
It is very much more about determining how to work together in this environment of chaos to be able to either work together or fall apart by yourselves.
Yeah. Well, it feels like a social experiment.
It is.
Because the zombies are, yes, like kind of in the backdrop. It is called Dead of Winter. And this game's real name is Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. That's the name of the game. But Dead of Winter
is the game.
Is the game, the Crossroads part. And I'll mention I got to go back to the Crossroads in a minute.
Yeah, they're really important.
But the zombies are just kind of flooding the area, and you as a group are trying to survive.
Yep.
And it does feel like that. And that's the intention of it, is that the zombie theme is kind of all around this thing. But the experiment itself is trying to survive as a group with your own personal intentions and schemes and, motives.
Yeah.
And you're battling that, because it does feel like you're in this game when you're playing it, because you're like, I can't win as imagine it if this is a real life situation. You can't win as an individual unless everybody survives. And so that's the constant battle in this game, deciding, am I helping the group to try and keep us alive in this game, or am I going to help myself? And you compromise at times. You compromise, like, at this point, okay, the group's doing okay. I'm going to take this chance to look for something for myself. Oh, it's like, oh no, we need 3 more food. Right now, it's my turn. I'm the last turn of this. I need to find the food for the group. If not, we're losing the game.
Right.
There's this constant, every single turn you are determining what decision, am I helping the group or am I helping myself? And sometimes there's a balance between both of those things, but most often it's the beginning of your turn. You are left with the decision. Am I helping the group as a colony or am I helping myself? And every turn is like that. It is almost split every time in my mind on my turn. What am I doing with my turn? Because I don't know what is the correct path to try and keep us in this game, and also for myself.
Yeah. And I think there is definitely that. Also with the Crossroads.
Oh.
The Crossroads add a fun, unique element that I think this game brings a lot of uniqueness just in the vibe of what this creates at the table. I don't know if it would have been as successful without this mechanic.
This mechanic
of adding crossroad cards.
Of the crossroad cards makes the game. And I know that's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement.
In this game, the aspects of it are great, but the crossroad cards are what make this game, the variability, the story, the theme, everything about these crossroad cards make this game what it is.
Yeah. And it really fills out the story, right?
Yes.
Like, otherwise, it's just you're in the middle of winter and you're fighting off zombies.
You're just moving around board to board, just killing zombies, collecting some food, boom.
But I would say we triggered the crossroad cards probably 3 out of... If we're playing a 5-player game, 3 out of 5 players are going to trigger the crossroad.
More than likely. Yeah, I'd say around 50%-ish.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
So in that number, you're really fleshing out a story of what's going on in this game.
Yep.
And the deck is thick enough that it's going to be unique a lot of the time.
I mean, I think the base game has over 50 cards for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe 100.
Expansions add more than that.
And so the crossword...
well, there's an app now, too.
Is there?
So there's more. So it just...
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, now I'm learning something. Hey, look, I can use this.
We're here to teach.
So, so you'll pick out the player that's to your
left. I looked it up this afternoon. It's left.
It's the player to your left. It's the next player to go, not the player that just went. Okay.
I've always played it the other way too, but that's what it is.
Interesting. I think Anyway, you will. That player will take this card and they'll look at it, and it'll say something that needs to trigger for them to read the rest of the ability or the rest of the text. And so let's say, hey, like you move to a different location and you move to the police station. Boom, this card triggers. So it reads this delightful story on how that you met this survivor and he was stuck under a bus and his leg was sitting there. And
by itself.
Just by itself. The leg is separate from the body. And you're sitting there and you come to a crossroad. Most of these cards all have a crossroads, and you decide. And I don't know about you, it doesn't really say specific on how the card should be read.
I think that's table preference.
Yes. And so what I like to do with my group is read. There's always like the first theme of the crossroad, and so you read through that. It's like, okay, it gives you the story. They stuck under a bus, and then you walk up to him, and he needs help. There's usually two options, really, option A or option B.
Usually. And
so what I like to do is kind of summarize that for the player that is whose turn it is and whose decision it is, because most of the time there is a group decision, but there also, a lot of the times, it's the player's decision whose turn it is. And so I like to kind of summarize, like, decision A is help the survivor, or option 2 is leave the survivor in his dust and take his things. And so you will read, the player or players as a group will decide what option they want, and then you'll read off the reward or kind of penalty for each of those things. And again, it does a lot of different things. It'll gain you food, it'll gain you this, gain you that, gain you cards or whatever. Cost you morale a lot of the time.
or you get attacked.
Or get attacked, yeah. And so there's so many different things that come from these crossroad cards that adds the theme to this game. Overall, you're looking at the board, and it looks like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
It looks like a colony and all this stuff, but you read the Crossroads card, and it just brings the theme out of this game. It brings
the game to life.
It brings that tension alive. It adds the stories. It adds those little stories that come off the Crossroad cards. You're like, oh, the dog showed up and he came and rescued me, and where'd that character? And it gives also the characters a little bit more background too as the game develops. And so those crossword cards really just kind of encompasses this game, puts a nice little shelter over all of it, and kind of wraps it all up, and it really completes the game.
I would agree. And so just going back, so we're not confusing anybody, the other way to read the crossroad card is to just read it full text.
Yeah.
And then give the player the options. I played it both ways. I think my personal preference is to give them a summarized version so they don't know the effects.
Right.
And then they choose from there. But I can see how someone who's wanting to have full information that some players already have, you would want to be, for fairness, you would want that. So I see both sides of it. I think either way is fine to play.
Oh, yeah.
I personally like the story aspect more. So when the crossroad, and this is one of my favorite crossroads, when the crossroad gives me this horse and I have to decide what I'm doing with the horse without knowing that I have free movement for the rest of the game, or I get a buttload of food if I eat the thing.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to know all that. I want to just make what my character's decision would be and then find out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it depends on the group. I like to summarize, but yeah, knowing there's a couple cards where it's like, man, that's a way better option.
Yes.
So yeah, it depends. I know in this last game I've played with one of the groups, we kind of got to the point where we were getting towards the end of the game and we were behind. And you're always behind in this game, but we were struggling. And I was reading crosswords, and I was like,
they're crossroads, not crosswords.
Crosswords.
No, that's still wrong.
Yeah, no, crossroads. There's a crossroads card that has words on it, and
that's true.
I'm reading it for the player next to me, and it was like one option was you lose morale. In that case, we would lose the game. And I was like, I'm gonna kind of pitch this in a way of like the other option is like you gain 2 food, which is what we need right now to even like have a chance. I was like, I kind of softened it a little bit because I was like, we're still one round away from even the game ending. So
I'm sure the betrayer really appreciated that in that game.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends. It kind of depends. But yeah, you play it how you want to play it, because either way, I think it's still the text in the beginning adds the theme.
Absolutely.
The other stuff in there is just kind of personal preference on how you want those decisions to be made throughout the game.
Absolutely. Some other things that I really like, the diversity in characters.
Yeah.
Especially when the character mechanic is so simplistic, so simple.
Ooh, say it.
Tell me about it. Where all it gives you is basically a attack value, a surge value, and an ability.
Yeah.
But even within that, the variation on the abilities and how the characters bring value to the group is really great. I really like the amount of variability in that. I also really like the different decks are not the same, that they are very much akin to that location,
Yeah.
really adds to the feel of being in that town. And it adds to the feel of, like I said, dude, you're at the hospital. Where's all the medicine?
Right.
And what's funny is sometimes you just can't find any.
Oh,
like
yeah, you're
get
searching
stuck,
the grocery store and there's no food. I don't know where all the food went, but it disappeared. Yep. No, it's very interesting. Definitely the locations, because you're like this. So again, I don't know how many cards. There's like 15, 20 cards probably per. I think it might be 20, 25.
Something like that. Yeah, I've never.
And so
I think it might be. I don't know. I know the starting count is 25, but I don't know if they're all that way.
And so you're searching and you're like, and it on the location itself, it tells you like what's most prominent in that location. You're like, oh, the grocery store has the most food. And it has little symbols in sequence of like, this has the most, second most. You're sitting there and you're like, dude, I've been searching here for 3 turns. I haven't found a single food. Where is it all at? And you're like, it has to be coming. But
you found 3 more followers and you add them all to your following.
Yeah. You have 3 more followers. You have 3 more characters now. Everybody's like super just frustrated and yelling at you because you're like, stop finding more people as first to feed. And you're like, well, and you're looking for food to feed the people you already have. And then you just found more people to feed. And there's now the colony's even more upset with you. It's the balance is incredible.
I was going to say, before we even get into what we didn't like or final thoughts, if you are a group that gets easily offended at what players do in a game, do not buy this game.
Oh, yeah.
You will not be happy with each other.
No, this game brings out the best and the worst in people.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Ian, what are some things that you might not have liked about Dead of Winter?
Yeah, so it's a rock and a hard place. A rock and a cold place.
Wow.
So this is going to be hard for me to explain or just express, because the part I don't like about this game is the fact that multiple people have their own hidden objective, that you have to complete the main objective of just surviving, but then maybe just you survived, but then if nobody completed their goal, then you all lose still, even though you completed the game. Or you completed the game and one player who didn't even help the entire time survives and you win as a team and he's the one who won. Or what happens often or not, there's also a betrayer at the end and he won. And that's fine. The main issue I have is really when, as a team, you've completed the main scenario objective, and then either one player wins or no player has completed their own personal. And I don't even know what to do about this part, because it's part of the game, and it makes the theme make sense. Like, it's part of the theme. It's like you're in a dead of winter. You're in the zombie apocalypse. You have your own personal game, so that it fits the theme perfectly. I understand that. And I don't even know what I would change, because it would change the complexity of the game for sure. It's frustrating, though, as a player, that you get through this 2 to 3-ish hour, depending on how many players you have and
how they play.
You get through this process of playing the game and surviving, and then at the very end, you just didn't win. And this game is just, it hits me every time. At the end of the game, I'm like, man, I enjoyed the process of this and it's fun. But it's like at the very end, you're just kind of left with a bad taste in your mouth.
If you don't complete your personal objective,
and it's like,
your personal goal.
And I guess two people there's multiple players that could win, I guess. I don't know what the tiebreaker is. I don't even know if there is one.
There's not.
So you get multiple people win. That's really the main thing. There's not a whole other like else, obviously rolling the die, that's chance. Like nobody likes dying, but that is the main thing for me.
Some people do. Sometimes your personal goal is to only have one survivor. So sometimes you do want that situation.
And sure, you can't kill somebody unless you like run them out there over and over again.
Yeah.
So that honestly, this is the main issue that every single time I play this game, it runs through my head. I'm like, man, I don't really know how to make that better, because I don't think there is. Every time there's honestly a big conflict in my head about it. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't think there is one. And it hits me every time, though.
That's really interesting, because I really don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I have a problem really getting that point across to players when I'm teaching them, because by the end of round 1, everyone's like we're in this together, arms linked kind of thing.
Like a fully cooperative
and you
game.
forget that the game is not fully cooperative.
Yeah.
So that part requires a little bit of an extra teach. I will challenge, before I get into my stuff, I will challenge you. I don't think most games will not take more than 2 hours.
If you play the more difficult ones, they say 120.
Yes, I would agree. But like this short to medium, which is 2/3 of the missions,
Okay.
I think you can get in an hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not teaching new people, though.
No, but like if you're just playing, like if you've learned the game, you want to play now. But
that's fine.
For me, I don't like that the person who is the betrayer has the option to rage quit in this game if things are not going well for them. So what I mean by that...
The betrayer himself?
Yeah, if it's not going well for him as the betrayer, like the people have either figured him out, but they haven't had a chance to exile him yet, or he's still secret, but he's like, there's no way I'm going to complete my personal objective. He can just be like, well, I'm just going to tank the game, get us down to 0 morale, and everybody loses. Because if I can't win, then no one can win.
Right.
I like that the mechanic is there for the betrayer. I like all of the things in the game.
It's all part of the theme. It all fits in.
It all fits great.
It all fits into the theme.
And I think if you have players that are not butts, then this is easily avoided. So that's a thing that I've got. Another thing that I think I don't know what to do with, because I would not take any of it out, but I do think this game does err so far on the side of there's so many issues going on in this game that I have been in many games where it's like, this is just insurmountable.
Yeah.
And some of that's because we unluckily didn't draw well, and we rolled the die bad, and there was a betrayer who was constantly sabotaging us.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad enough without the betrayer.
Right.
Like, just playing a full co-op, there's a lot going on to try and get done.
Full cooperative, like, things happening to you where it's just all bad stuff.
Yeah. And even then, you're like, I don't know if we can do this.
It's an incredibly hard game.
It is an incredibly hard game, which is great.
If it was just strictly cooperative, this would be one of the hardest cooperative games that I have played.
I'm arguing with myself.
At base.
But yeah. But I think that adding the betrayer possibility adds a new level to this game, where the game wants you to take risks and you have to decide where to take those risks because of the fact that if you overcommit, you've basically committed the game.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that the game has the potential to be very fragile at times if a perfect storm comes together and just fall apart.
Yeah.
But for me, that doesn't really, I mean, it is a negative, but it has not cost me any love of this game, I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah.
One other positive that I want to throw in there that I didn't before that I just thought of, there's no player elimination, which for the amount of stuff that's going on in this game is wild to me.
Yeah, so if you lose both your characters,
you get
a new one, but you lose the morale as normal.
And if you get exiled, you're still playing the game. You're just playing a different game.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that to me is great. So the fact that you could have all these things going on and not lose anybody, it's absolutely a perk.
Yeah.
The only other downside that I will say, and this is strictly a new player issue, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of things that you need to learn how to do well before they become effective.
Yeah.
There's ways to make noise in this game. There's ways to build barricades. There's all kinds of little bits that are crucial to being really good at this game, but it's a lot for a new player.
And using your own character abilities that work, you have to learn how they do it, especially if they're like searching abilities, like how to trigger those. There's weapons and stuff that you find that like the combos that you kind of have to sort out. So yeah.
So for me, that's just like a heads up as you like go into it.
Yeah.
Oh, like I said before, you 100% will roll that tooth on
as a new player.
It's guaranteed.
For sure. And yeah, that's again, like you're saying, those are some of the things. It's like, I don't really know what I would do differently. I just know that it sometimes just doesn't sit well. And so, yeah, it's tough. It is definitely player specific. You got to have the right group. You don't want, just a bunch of butts running around being jerks to everybody.
Don't be a butt.
Yeah, don't be a butt. And that, yes, because what can happen on the opposite side of that is, as a player, even if you're for the colony, is that you're also like, I'm not completing my objective, so I'm also going to ruin this game.
Yep.
And so that can happen too, not just the betrayer part. And so you do need a group that...
You mean the main objective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so you're supposed...
because I can't get my personal,
I'm not going to, ruin the main...
Guys, don't be a butt. Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and so it's tough. Yeah, you have to like... And sometimes I kind of put that out there, like, hey, this is the main objective. And for the players that once we get through the main objective and we win that, we see who the real winner is. That's kind of the way I pitch it. Yes, it is frustrating. But it's the dead of winter.
I think it's part of the game, man.
Is. It's 100% of the game. That's the kind of conflict within me, because I'm like,
because without that, like, you lose the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. It's so conflicting. It's so conflicting. I'm having like an outer body of experience.
You guys, I'm watching Ian right now, and he's just fighting with himself.
Just because I like this game, but then I don't like that part at all, and it's so annoying. Because yes, you get.
So then you're like, do I even like the game at all?
Yeah, right. Because it is part of the game.
It is.
And it's
fundamental to the game.
You are, and that. Let me emphasize, you are in the dead of winter. When you play this game, you are invested in this game.
Yes,
fully invested in being in this apocalyptic world that you are trying to survive, and it really does dive you into the theme of this game. And Plaid Hat always does a great game, especially in their theme. They love theme, and they knocked it out of the park with this one, because it does feel like there's a lot of things to hate, there's a lot of things to like, and it's not perfect. It's not. And that's just kind of how, that's what it is. It's this experience of this game that kind of leaves you in this place that's just not perfect. It's an imperfect place.
All right. I feel like you're drifting into final thoughts, and we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
Player count.
Yep.
So this can be played from 2 to 5 players.
Yes.
And so do you have an ideal player count for this game?
Man, I feel like 5. It does do well with 5. It's kind of chaotic though, but I don't know. I don't know if I've played enough of like each one to know a favorite. I do know I did like it with 5, so 4 to 5.
I have played this game a lot.
Okay.
At all counts.
Okay.
Is
it 2? What did you say?
2 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So with a 2-player, you just remove the betrayer. You're doing the full co-op.
Sure.
So to me, this game shines at 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Really well.
In their own ways? Or just...
Well, okay, so here's what I'll say about the 3-player. I think one of the best games that I've ever had in this game was at 3 players.
Okay.
But it was 3 players that knew how to play the game really well. So at 3, you're a little more player dependent.
Is there a betrayer still, possibly?
The possibility is there. Yes. In fact, the betrayer won that game and played me like a freaking fiddle. And it was...
He's still salty about it.
But it was a great game.
He is.
My brother-in-law, Johnny, did a great job.
He is still just salivating over this victory that he had in his mouth. He was tasting that food.
Ian, I had it.
He was tasting the food.
I was so sure I was right, and then I wasn't. It was
just taken away from him.
Yep. But I will say 3, 4, and 5, it all works great. There was a time where I would go over to my father-in-law's house, maybe once a month. We played Dead of Winter 2-player.
Okay.
It's still really challenging.
Yeah,
even at 2. We lost at least half the time, if not more, because we play all the time, so we're not bad players,
right?
But it can be a really hard game.
I think this game is one of the hardest games I have played. Just like straight up out of the box, like there's a lot of scenarios, but man,
yeah. And there's hard modes on the back of each of the scenarios.
Yeah,
if that wasn't hard enough, like we didn't even get there,
right?
Yep. So, but yeah, I really, as an encouragement, I think it can be done well at all player counts. There are 2 expansions.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of like promos sprinkled in it throughout the years.
There's a lot of promos that have been looped around.
That's right. So there's Dead of Winter, The Long Night, which is essentially a standalone expansion. So you could get just The Long Night. The components are a little bit upgraded from the original game. There's new characters. There's more zombies. There's new locations that aren't in the original game. But you don't get any of the base characters. You just get new characters. And you don't get any of the base Crossroad cards. They're all new Crossroad cards. So it is different, but it's the same.
Sure.
And it's good. I have Long Night. I enjoy it. I mostly stick with the base game because after trying to add in the expansion, I realized how complete Dead of Winter is by itself. I don't really need an expansion for it.
And you're talking about a Crossroads game. That's the base game.
Correct. Yeah, Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. Like Long Night it's good.
Yeah.
But I mostly just introduce a Crossroads game.
Gotcha.
There's also, and we have not done this. This is a someday JaredCon experience.
Mhm.
There is an expansion called Den of Winter: Warring Colonies.
Yes.
Where you take Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game, and Dead of Winter, a Long Night, and you're playing two games simultaneously. So one group is playing one game, one group's playing the other. They're attacking each other. They're affecting each other. And it's this big event.
Yeah.
But
and
again,
with that, it's all the same game. You play rounds together,
Yeah.
but like there's two colonies happening at the same time.
that's right. Yes.
There's two colonies, but the game forces you to interact and work together as separate colonies and stuff like that. Again, we haven't played this one, but it would be a lot. It's a lot of players.
It's like an experience thing that you don't do very often. But
I will say, for those listening to this podcast, please tell us about that because I'm interested. So please let us know
if you played it.
If you've played that.
Yeah.
I would love to know how that experience went. Is it worth it? That would be great. I would love to hear. So please let us know in the comments and whatnot on like what you get there. Because I'm really curious about this because it's really interesting. I don't know how the two colonies together would work, but I think, the base game has a lot. Long Night, I've played. The characters are great. Obviously more characters are good, but in general, the base has plenty in it for sure. If you're not playing it all the time.
The only reason I haven't just thrown them all in the same box is that you literally can't. With the box that comes with the game, like the game is packed with stuff.
It is. It's fully packed. The box is filled for sure. So,
all right, time to move into grading and final thoughts.
Yeah.
Or do you have something else?
No, I think just to quickly the designer.
Oh, yeah, we do need to talk about that.
Yeah, the designer. It's Plaid Hat Games, so they've done some other stuff. Let's see. They've done Summoner Wars, Mice and Mystics, Forbidden Waters.
Yeah, this is all Plaid Hat that you're talking about right now. Yeah,
Fables, Inspector Ops. So these are some of the big games.
And some other stuff too.
They've done a lot of stuff. But again, theme is
story.
Dude, they love having theme in their games, which I think is absolutely awesome. And so that's something that they really focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two designers for this, Jonathan Gilmour, and then what is it, Isaac Vega, yeah. And so they've each done their own games. Jonathan did Dinosaur Island. Really, this game is one of his biggest ones, and then Dinosaur Island. He's done some other things, but and then Isaac. Kind of a similar thing. This is kind of their biggest game. Isaac Vega did Ashes and then Forgotten Waters, and so
a lot of his stuff is with Plaid Hat. I know he's with his own company now.
Okay,
they've got a game. Isaac's coming out with a game that's going to be released next year called Wild Gardens, which I will link in the episode description as well because I know you can still pre-order it. It's about foraging. And I just checked to make sure Anna's not listening, but that will be a game on our shelf next year. So because she's really into foraging, and so she doesn't know about that yet.
That's cool. Wild Gardens. Okay.
Yep.
I'm interested. Yeah. No. Again, these are they're good designers. They made a good game here. Yeah. They're on the grind. They're working. They've got a lot of games that they've done together and separate. So good on them. I applaud you guys. And they have a couple games in the top 200, so that's awesome.
They do.
On BGG,
which is huge.
Yeah,
I mean that's
2 games on. They have 2 games on BGG in the top 200. This one ranks, I think, 190s, which is awesome. Last I checked, so
191 overall.
Yeah, that's great. And
out
again, this
like
game
10,000 games or something like that. Yeah.
This is for this game to be still on that list after almost 10 years is really good. It's a strong game. It does well, and that kind of takes us to what we liked and didn't like, I guess, or not our final thoughts.
Now it's time for final thoughts.
We've already talked about what we liked and didn't like, but
absolutely
overall thoughts.
Tell me, Ian, how do you feel about this game?
I've already said what I love and hate about this game. I'm still conflicted. On what I truly think about this game. Every experience is different in its own way. And every game is different. It always ends differently, and the way it's played, because there's so much variability, and that's awesome. I think overall, I'm gonna do something a little different here. As a game, if I were to just rate it as a game, I would say probably around a 6. Yeah, as a game. I think there are really good things about it, but that the way, for me, that the players at the end of the game, it's like you might win, but then you didn't. Okay, that's dumb. If you think of any other game in the world, you're like, okay, you won the game, but then you didn't. That's frustrating. But as an experience, as a thematic experience that I am drawn into, this game really sits like an 8 or 9 for me.
This is our favorite way to split our score.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
Experience versus the game itself.
So I'm going to give it, I'll give it a 7 point.
You can keep it split. It's okay.
Okay. Well, I was going to add them up.
There's no shame in that.
I was going to add them up.
If you want to average them, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the average would be around 7.25.
Okay.
But overall, yeah, there's kind of two ways to look about it, because honestly, I hate that there's like a player that wins over the other, and I can't stand it, because you put all this effort in as a group, and then only one of the players who didn't do as much as everybody else wins. And again, that's game. That's the game part of it. As an experience, though, because I have to kind of separate that part of like, this is an experience because you're surviving winter together, and it's not perfect. And so I have to separate that part. And those are just the things that I don't like about it. If I separate it all, I really, really enjoy this game every single time. And it has to be with, like we said, we have to be with specific people, because you can't pick people that are kind of just going to do their own thing and kind of sabotage everything just because they're not winning. And I'm not that person, but there are plenty of people that can do that, and you don't want to play that with. This is not their game, because it won't make it fun for the group. I think everybody kind of has to be on the same page as a group. Like, hey, we're going to commit to this. If there is a betrayer, that's fine. He's going to play his own game, but not like purposely wreck everything as a group. You're committing as a group to play the game as is. And so with that, like, it is a very solid game. I really do enjoy it. I would say somewhere around an 8 for sure as far as experience. I really do enjoy playing the game. It's the ending that I always have depression about, but and with that, it feels. It again, this game really truly feels like the most recent zombie thing that I have is the Last of Us show. And I just, you're down when he's inside that village kind of in the wintertime. It's like he's talking to everybody, but there's like this tension. You're like, is he telling the truth? Is he a good guy? Is his brother good? Is he bad? That's what it feels like when you're playing this game. I feel like I'm in a movie. I'm in a movie, yeah, and I'm looking at all the characters, and I'm like, I see what you're saying, I see what you're doing, but do I trust you? I don't think so. I mean, maybe I do a little bit, but no, I don't think I do. And it's like and then there's always this tension of running into a zombie, running into other players out in the wilderness that kind of hurt you, or a crossroad. This game truly does feel like, as the thing that I related to is being in one of these shows that is about these types of scenarios. The most recent for me is The Last of Us. It feels like I'm in The Last of Us, and I'm trying to survive and get to the end and get to the end goal. So, yeah, so that's kind of my overall thoughts about it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I have been talking louder than I even usually do because of how excited I am to do this game. I love the way this game plays. I love the tension that it brings to the table naturally, and I love the fact that you have people working together on this goal, but they also have to complete their own goal. I am very much the opposite of you. I have no issue with that part. In fact, it is essential to this game, to the point that I don't even look at the main objective as the win condition anymore. I stopped doing that because that's a full co-op mindset, and that is not what this game is. I also, like I said, the theme, the characters, the artwork, all of it comes together really nicely in a nice, they really, you talk about hitting out of the park. They did a great job of that, in my opinion, of this game. For me, the qualms that I brought up are really more of like hey, be aware of this going into it, because it's very easy to be a butt, and you don't want to be a butt because no one likes that on game night. For me, This game is an 8.5 without question. It does have the potential to fall in on itself, which leaves it a little bit lower than I think my excitement shows. But I cannot think of a time where this game has let me down from having a fun experience, win or lose. It has been in that weird, like, I'm frustrated and I lost, but it was still a great time all the way through. So for me, absolutely sits at that 8.5 range. So that's kind of where I sit with it. I think a movie, watching either a movie or a TV show where there's lots of angst and drama and you're not sure who to trust is a really good analogy of what you're feeling like when you play this game. And I will say, like, I know that this game is a little bit of a higher learning curve, but I think there's a lot of people out there that do like this game and more people that could really enjoy this game if they're willing to dive into it.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. And yeah, I think there's a lot of things. Again, I don't hate this game.
I know you don't.
It's the ending that and I don't think there's anything I would do different. It's just maybe that's it. I haven't gotten into the right mind space when I going into this game. And maybe that's it. Maybe I just need to play it some more and kind of get into a better mindset when starting.
Yeah.
And maybe that could definitely be it. Maybe you just got to get in the right state of mind and in the way you're thinking about endgame. That could probably be it. And so next time
anytime you want to play, bro.
Yeah,
I'm always down to play Dead of Winter.
Next time I play, I'll have to be in a better state of mind.
Aha!
Yes.
All right.
Not a zombie mind, but
definitely not a yes, and no brain freeze.
Yeah.
So
no frostbite here.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here at the table. We definitely appreciate it. If you have feedback or want to give us your thoughts on the game, we would love to hear from you. Links to all of our socials where you can find us and ways to contact us are in the description. Just click on that link tree. It will take you to literally every place that we are on the internet, and then feel free to reach out as you please.
Yes, and comment on how would you think about this game, and if you've played the Warring Colonies.
Absolutely. Also, jump in on our Discord. We would definitely love for you to join the conversation. We're trying to get that up and going, and we want as many people in there as possible to get that conversation more and more jiving.
That's right. Jiving. Surviving.
While you're clicking around on all those fun links, please head over to our various podcast locations where you listen. Give us that 5-star review.
Only 5 stars.
Only 5 stars. Do not, if you are that one person that thinks a 1-star is the best rating, you are in fact wrong, and you want to give us 5 stars instead.
5-star only.
Please follow us on Instagram and TikTok and subscribe to our podcast. All of these heroic actions are immensely helpful in growing this product of a podcast, which we would love to see grow. Special thanks to Angie Santiago for our cover art and to Anna Snyder who made the music. Join us next time as Ann and I do another 2-top review where we take a look at the highly anticipated Sky Team. Woo! In the meantime, may your dice rolls and your card draws be blessed, your experiences at the table be ones to remember forever.
And just remember, the winter is coming.
It's a zombie! Run, it's a zombie! Run!